Welcome, everybody, to today's Building My Legacy podcast. I have with me today Terrance Lee. Terrance Lee is interesting. Not many people talk about their personality types, whether they're introverts or extroverts. I guess maybe we just assume people notice that and then move on their own way. He has used it in terms of creating business with it. Comes out of an engineering background himself, is an introvert, I'm guessing. And so he talks a lot about the Introvert Leader. And he's just recently come out with a book called The Quiet Voice, The Fearless Leader. And so, Terrance, to get started, I would like to know a little bit what got you started down this road, because introverts also don't tend to blow their whistle or the horn about their personality types and how they use it. So what got you into this?
Yeah, definitely. Well, first, I appreciate you having me on the podcast. And, I really like to start kind of at the beginning. So for me, I was a kid that grew up moving around a lot. My dad took a lot of different jobs. And so I grew up living in 5 different cities. And so I switched schools a lot growing up. And I was actually pretty outgoing. I was the one that was the first to go to the board during class to answer questions, and would raise my hand all the time and things like that. Had a lot of friends. And when I was in middle school, at the age of 13, an incident happened with a choir director that really impacted my confidence. She said something to me that just really impacted my confidence in a lot of ways. And so from that point, I went from being that kid that was always raising my hand to being the kid that wanted to sit in the back of the class. I wanted nothing to do with leadership or talking in front of people or any of that. And so that really carried from middle school into high school and then into college and then into my engineering career. I graduated with a electrical engineering degree. And in meetings, I just wanted to just kind of sit in the corner or sit in the back. I didn't find myself wanting to contribute as much. And even though I would know the answer to things, I just didn't feel like I had that personality to contribute. And what happened was I got put in basically a sink or swim situation. One of the lead engineers put in a 2-week notice, and I was his backup on a project, and there was a big presentation coming up. And so I was basically put in a position to give that presentation. And I was extremely nervous. I didn't want to do it. I just, I always thought people that were leaders or people that spoke up were just extroverts. I didn't think I had the personality for that. And I did the presentation, and it actually went very well. And that was early on in my career. And now fast forward 15 years later, I'm currently a program manager at a Fortune 500 defense contractor. I lead large groups of teams across engineering and non-engineering disciplines. And I've done all this while maintaining an introverted personality. And so the reason for the work that I do is because I want to empower people that feel like because they're more introverted, they can't lead. Or they feel like because they're introverted, they have to be somebody else, or they have to be an extrovert in order to be successful. And so that's really the reason for what I do and what got me started in this work.
When you tell your story, Terrance, one of the things that strikes me is how one event can shape so much.
Yeah.
And probably the teacher that was involved has no knowledge of the impact. Often we don't. The person who creates the harm generally is oblivious, right? Otherwise they would stop, pause, and do something about it. But I often marvel at how many people walk around wounded from something like that. And my guess is that part of a secret that you have, a secret sauce in a sense, is that experience. And people probably go, I got it, you can get me. Or there's a safety net that's built around you when I'm with you. And does that make any sense? Is that at all what people experience, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Because I think I'm as a leader, I'm very protective of my team. And I'm very protective of people. And I feel like that probably stems from things like that incident. because that really did impact me for a long time. And I didn't realize that it impacted me like that, to be honest, until I started writing my book and really thinking about my story. And so, yeah, I think that I try to maintain a safe environment with my team. I try to make it where people feel comfortable talking to me and sharing things with me.
So tell me about the quiet voice, fearless leader. What are some of the big concepts that you wanted to get across in that book?
Yeah, definitely. So Quiet Voice, Fearless Leader, 10 Principles for Introverts to Awaken the Leader Inside is a book with 10 chapters. Every chapter has a different leadership principle, and there are 3 pillars within that principle. And every chapter also has a section called What Introverts Wish Extroverts Knew. And the reason that I put that into every chapter is because I didn't just want the book to actually be for introverts. I wanted it to be for people that are extroverts as well, and give them tips on how to work better and, do business better with introverts. And so that's why I put that there. And then every chapter also concludes with an action plan, because I'm really big on taking action. I didn't want people to just read the book and think it's a great read, and then they kind of just put it to the side. I really wanted to give actionable tips that people can take and implement and better their lives. So that's, pretty much the structure of the book and how it's laid out.
So tell me, Terrance, your favorite tip for extroverts about introverts?
Yes, great question. So I've got a lot of them.
I'll bet you do. I can't wait to hear them.
Yeah. So one of them is, and I talk about this in the first chapter, but I give this scenario in the book of people that are sitting in a room, right? And because I've been in this scenario, and let's say there's 10 people in a room and 2 people in that room aren't saying a lot. And the people that are more extroverted, they're doing all the talking, they're talking back and forth, they're having this conversation, and they assume that the 2 people sitting there not saying anything don't have something to contribute. They assume that they don't have value to add, or they're antisocial, or there are a lot of different labels that those 2 people in that room can get. But one of the things we talk about is knowing how to have an inclusive environment and knowing who your people are. And so if I know that I'm working with people that are more introverted, then I know that I may need to ask for their input. They need to feel included. They need to feel like I care about what they have to say. Because a lot of times in conversations, the extroverts are dominating the conversation, and the people that are more introverted may not feel like they can speak up. They may not feel like their input is as valued. And so we kind of talk about that and, and just ways that extroverts can create environments where it's more inclusive.
I think there's also the hidden perspective that if you're not saying anything, you must agree.
Yes.
Which is dangerous, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
So tell me, what else are your favorite tips that you want people to know? Another one, please.
Yeah, so that's one. And then I'll say another one is authenticity. Oh. I talk a lot about authenticity in the book. And so I think it's very important that people that are extroverted don't need to try to make someone that's an introvert, don't try to make them an extrovert, right? And it's just accepting people for who they are. And I get it, like in corporate environments and business environments, sometimes if someone's not speaking up or not saying things, they can be labeled a certain way. And the thing that most people would do is try to get that person to become more outgoing or be more extroverted. And there will be conversations about, well, how to do that with that person. When in reality, yes, there are times for them to speak up and there are times for them to give input, but they can maintain an introverted personality and still be effective. And so we talk about like just authenticity and allowing people to be who they are and to thrive in who they are. And so that's another big tip and something that I think is very key for extroverts. And then for introverts as well, to be comfortable and confident in being an introvert and not feel like they have to be something that they're not.
So often introverts get misjudged, right? As not having an opinion and not wanting to be involved. So how do you help an introvert become an integral part of a team? Because it's a two-way street. The extrovert needs to learn. The introvert also needs to learn. So what is it that the introvert needs to learn relative to their role?
Yes, yes. And you're absolutely right. It is a two-way street, and that's another thing is my work and what I do is definitely not about bashing extroverts or, just talking about what extroverts should do. It's very much talking about as introverts, how we can be better. And so in chapter 1, we talk about as an introvert, how you can add value. And so, that's the title of the chapter is value. And one of the things that as introverts, we do at times is sometimes we'll avoid speaking up and we'll avoid confrontation. And it kind of goes back to something you said earlier, where you said about silence can mean that people think you agree. And I think as introverts, we have to have the courage to speak our mind if we don't agree with a point being made, or if we think there's a different, solution that's better. And so that does take a level of courage, because sometimes as introverts, we don't feel like speaking up, or we don't feel like our words will be heard or understood. And so, we get into the tips on how to do that, as far as if you have a thought, how to share that thought, how to find that right moment in a conversation to insert your value, to say what you have to say. And so, those are some of the tips there.
So I think everybody could learn those basic concepts. So how do you know when's the right time to insert your viewpoint?
So it's something that I really believe comes with practice. And I believe it also comes with knowing the room and really reading the room. And knowing the kind of environment that you have and the kind of team you have, So I've been in some situations on teams where, to be honest, it wasn't as open of an environment. It was kind of a power struggle environment where I've literally been on teams where 2 or 3 people are the only people that really spoke in the room. And people, not just introverted people, but other people in the room, period, were afraid to talk, because if they talk, their ideas would just get shot down. And so I think that environments like that is very tough to know when to, speak up or insert your value. But if it's an inclusive environment, then I think it's very important, just when there's a conversation going on, you listen for key points, you listen for key things. And if there's some value you can insert, or there's some thought that you've had, when you hear that thing and you hear that cue, it's like, all right, this is my moment, and you really have to seize that moment, because sometimes, and this has happened to me in the past, I could have said something and I didn't, and then the moment's gone, and the conversation goes to something else. And so it's really just listening for those key moments during conversation, looking for your time to add value. And when that time comes, having the courage to speak up and do that.
It's courage. It's also what you said earlier, and that is there's a certain amount of practice, right? So I'm thinking to meetings I've been in and groups that I've been in with introverts and extroverts, and part of it also depends on the culture of the organization. There's some cultures that are so competitive that people are, like you say, are afraid to speak their opinion. Because it may be misinterpreted, it may make it circle around the wrong way. But there's something very precious about each person's opinion, and you have a meeting for a reason, right? Yep. And you have those people come for a reason. So as a leader, what are your thoughts about, you've worked rooms, you know how to read people. How do you help a leader really incorporate all personality styles?
Great question. Great question. So I think that what's so key, and I've tried to do this in my different leadership roles, and I continue to work at it, is to really know your people. And I think that a lot of that comes with one-on-one conversation. It comes with working with them over time, getting to know them. And once you know your people and once you know how they work. So for example, there are some people I work with right now that I know if we have a team meeting, they're going to leave that meeting and want to go kind of work by themselves for a while. They're going to want to get their thoughts together. They're going to want to think about what we just discussed. And then when we come back together, that's when they're going to give their input. Where there's other people where the first time we meet, they want to get all their thoughts out right then. They just want to shoot from the hip, just talk through it, talk about all of it. So everyone's work style is very different. And so for leaders, it's important for us to know that, because sometimes I've seen where leaders are trying to force things out of people, and maybe they're not ready to talk about it yet. Maybe they want to think about it. Maybe they want to think through the options. They want to have that time to themselves. So much of it, I think, is just taking that time to get to know our people. And then once we know our people, then from there, I think we can have good relationships.
So much depends also on corporate culture and really working through that in a clear way. So you don't have that experience like you did with your music teacher. And yet it is, unfortunately, an experience that many people do have repetitively in the workplace, sometimes for no good reason, perhaps not anything that they did personally to contribute to it. So introverts get misread often. They tend not to like conflict. They don't want to speak up. And so in cultures like that are very competitive, how do you help introverts become noticed and become an integral part of the team?
Yes, great question. So, a lot of times with a question like this, I think to myself, I think about my career and kind of what's happened with me, right? So in the defense industry, it's very competitive. Our customers have very tight deadlines. It's really a fast-paced environment. And so for someone like myself, one thing and one way that introverts can set themselves apart, and I talk about this a lot, is effort. Yeah. So one thing about me is that the people that I work with, I've gotten the reputation for I'm going to do what it takes to get the job done. And I think that so much of effort doesn't have to do with personality type. So someone that's introverted, if they perform, if they do well, then they will get noticed. So some people can talk a good game and they can talk a lot and everything, but at the end of the day, who's producing and who's performing? So I think that's very key. And then the other one is courage. Again, going back to that, we do as introverts have to be willing to step out of our comfort zone at times. I was given a project engineering role, which was my first kind of major technical lead role at a prior company. And when I was given that role, I was not comfortable with it. I thought the responsibility was going to be too much. I had never led a team of engineers that large. I didn't know how I was going to do. It ended up going very well. I mean, the program went well. I gained a lot of confidence, I feel like, as a leader from that. But it took me stepping out of my comfort zone. It took me saying, okay, this is a new opportunity. I'm going to try this. I'm going to do this. And so a lot of it is breaking those fears and just making sure that we're open to new things. I think that's a big part of it.
Did you have a mentor at that time that helped you with that? Or was it something you worked out on your own?
So I had a mentor. I had a great mentor, by the way. And he really helped me. And it's interesting because sometimes people see things in you that you don't even see in yourself. And when I was slated for that role and I was concerned, and I told him, I was like, Chris, I don't know. I mean, this is a large team. And he's like, Terrance, you got it. He's like, you've been doing a great job here. You're going to do fine. And he just saw something in me that I didn't see at the time. And it actually went really well. So yeah, mentors are so important. I'm a huge proponent of people having mentors and having coaches.
It's interesting because it's easy to see that an introvert might want and need a mentor. But I think many times it's the extrovert that needs it the most, because they may say things and do things without the reflection that an introvert will usually put in first.
Yeah, I could totally see that. And I think that, again, it's just different styles, because sometimes the extrovert may just say the first thing that's on their mind, without maybe thinking it through. And then the introvert may think it more through, but then on the flip side, sometimes the introvert has to speak up more. So I think there's always things to work on in both cases.
So tell me, there are a lot of myths about introverts. Could you go through some of those myths and speak to that?
Yes, definitely. So the biggest myth to me about introverts is that we're quiet. I think that is the biggest myth. Introverts are quiet. I hear it all the time. We see it all the time. The reality is that we're not necessarily quiet. We're just quiet in certain situations. Take me when I'm around a certain group of people, like friends or family or coworkers that I'm very close to, I can talk all day. I mean, we can talk, we can joke, laugh, everything. But I think when new people come into the situation that maybe I'm not as comfortable with, or if I'm just in a new networking environment and I don't know anyone there, then that's a different environment for me than the other situation, right? So that's a big one. I think introverts it's not that we're quiet, it's just, it depends on the situation. And then the other one is back to the original example of the people in the room, is a big myth is that we don't have value to add. I think that's a very big misconception because we have enormous value to add. There are a lot of introverts that are extremely successful and amazing leaders. And so when we're in the right environment, when we know that people care about our input and our opinion, and when we're just put in situations to thrive, then I think we do incredibly well. So I would say those are two of the biggest myths that are out there.
So tell me, what makes an introvert a good leader? Because I think many times it's an introvert type leader that people are drawn to. There's a perception of safety. But speak to that, if you would, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I think that introverts make really good listeners. And the reason I say that is because a lot of times other personality types are focused a lot more on talking, where the introvert is focused more on listening. And when you're leading people, one of the very key points and the key things is the ability to listen. Because as leaders, we don't have all the answers. We don't know everything. It's very important, me in my role, that I hear the perspectives of different people that are thinking different ways. And so listening is a strength as a leader. We have to be able to do that. And then I think one of the other ones I'll say is observation. I talk about this a lot because I feel like introverts, again, back to that meeting setting, right? When we're in a meeting, we're watching the conversations that are going on. We're listening to everything that's being said, and we're picking up on cues and certain things that other people are missing. And so a lot of times when everyone else is busy talking and the back and forth is going on, I'm actually observing the room. Or if I'm on a call, I'm listening to people's tone, the way they're saying things. If we're in person, I'm watching body language. I'm noticing different things. I'm like, oh, this person is upset, or this person doesn't like what was just said, And so I think we're very observant because we typically are not just focused on talking, we're focused on observing and listening as well.
It's interesting because in important meetings, often we'll have somebody there just as an observer to read the room, right? And what may be missed in a lot of organizations, groups, teams is they have that built-in observer. Just use them. They'll give you the information you want about how well things are moving. What else would you say makes for a good leader as an introvert? Why would you want specifically to look for a leader that's an introvert?
Yeah, so I think, again, I think the listening. Another big one as well, I think, is the ability to be calm under pressure. I think that's a very big one. I think in leadership, it's very key when things are high pressure, high stakes, there's a lot going on, the ability to maintain calm, the ability to make sure that your team is calm. I feel like the team takes on the personality of the leader. And so I've noticed in some past programs that I've worked on, if the leader is very tense, very worried, very just concerned about what's going on, then the team takes on that persona. And so when your leader is more calm, when your leader is listening, when your leader is empathetic to people and their situations, then I think that trickles down through the organization. So I think that's another really big thing with introverted leaders as well, is just that ability to maintain that calm and have that calm presence.
So as a leader, tell me, what's been your favorite experience that you got put into that you just sat back and it made you, reflect on leadership for yourself? It really made you feel good.
Yeah. Gosh, I've got a lot of those. I'm going to say at one point I was a proposal manager. So I was leading business capture. Actually, at the current company that I'm at, I was in this role a few years ago. And that was pretty cool because I was leading these very large business capture activities with very aggressive deadlines and a lot of visibility from high level leadership, daily calls and tag ups and all these kind of things. And I was pretty much the one leading the proposal. And the reason that was a great opportunity and experience for me is, again, it showed me just the ability of being calm and how you being calm can impact the team. Because so many people pass proposals on our program would get very tense, very worried. It was a very just tense environment. And one thing people would say to me all the time during that proposal, they were like, man, Terrance, I don't know how you stay so cool through all this, these customer calls and all this stuff. And, and it really gave me a certain confidence, and it made me feel good. And it made me feel good that we gave the customer a good product at the end of the day through all of that. So I think just, a tense situation like that, being able to lead effectively and the team have a calm sense and feel comfortable with what was going on because I was the leader, that really made me feel good.
I think there's a sense with that kind of leadership that comes, I think, from reflection. And I think introverts often reflect before they speak because of that's kind of how they're put together. We are almost at the conclusion of our time. So I just want to ask that concluding question. Terrance, what have we left out that you would like the audience to know about?
Yeah, so, I would just love to connect with everybody. I'm very active on social media. So if people want to follow me on Instagram, my handle is @the Leader. I'm also on Facebook @the Leader. And my book, Quiet Voice, Fearless Leader, 10 Principles for Introverts to Awaken the Leader Inside, is available on Amazon in print, ebook, and audio. So just would love for everyone to check that out. And I guess just, parting words is for anyone that hears this, that has an introverted personality, to just, love who you are and don't feel like you have to be something else to be successful. You can absolutely be an introvert and be successful and be heard. And if you're listening to this and you're an extrovert, then I would say to just, seek to understand people with an introverted personality. And I think we can all work well together.
Wow. Understanding is everything, isn't it? Taking the time to understand. And so much of it begins, like you said, with listening. Terrance, I really appreciate your perspective and your coming on. It's a part of leadership that we don't talk much about, which is sad. And so thank you so much. And we will have information about Terrance and his book, and also contact information about him in the show notes. So please reach out to him and reach out to him on social media as well. Thank you so much, Terrance, for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
And for those of you who are listening to Building My Legacy podcast today, thank you for being with us. And remember to visit our website as well at www.buildtomorrow.com with the number 2. Thank you. Thank you, Terrance.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for watching my video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell button above. Leave comments. We'd love to hear what you think. And visit our other social media links as well. Thanks much.